Hi everybody, welcome to Jake's Showcase. I do videos on Wednesdays. Today, I'm going to go through some things that you may not know about James Dean. Let's go. James Dean said, "Being an actor isn't easy. Being a man is even harder. I want to be both before I'm done." While filming Rebel Without a Cause, the director Nicholas Ray had an affair with the co-star Natalie Wood, who was only 16 years old at the time. Plato had a hopeless crush on James Dean. As a child, James Dean would disassemble and reassemble his bicycle over and over again. He told more than one friend he did not expect to live beyond 30. When talking about racing cars, he said, "What a better way to die. You go out in a blaze of glory." Dean was once suspended for 3 days for throttling a heckler who was trying to disrupt one of his acting competitions. Before he was famous, Dean would sleep in his car if he couldn't afford to pay rent, and would go out with gay men on dates for a free meal. Dean died before the release of his most famous movie, Rebel Without a Cause. Filming Giant, Dean wore the same shirt for 2 weeks straight without washing it. In high school, Dean was a champion pole vaulter. The first Broadway show that Dean starred in, See the Jaguar, closed within 6 days. At a Hollywood party, James put an apple on his head and challenged an archer to shoot it off of his head. Just before the archer shot, the host of the party canceled the dare. 2 weeks before his death, Dean appeared on a public announcement about road safety. He said, "Take it easy on the road. The life you might save might be mine." He claimed that his middle name Byron came from a romantic poet named Lord Byron. For a while, James Dean dated Liz Sheridan, who became famous for her role on Seinfeld as Helen Seinfeld, Jerry's mother. Stevens, the director of Giant, liked to shoot each scene from a variety of locations, and he quickly became frustrated with James Dean, who refused to shoot the same shot twice. More men than women claimed to have slept with James Dean. Growing up, James Dean liked to impersonate famous radio personalities like Bob Hope. As a child, James Dean knocked out his front teeth in a barn accident and had to wear dental bridges. As an adult, sometimes James Dean would take out his bridge and put it in other people's cups. Martin Sheen said, "There was a saying, Marlon Brando changed the way people acted. James Dean changed the way people lived." I believe that. The last time James Dean signed his name was for a speeding ticket, where he was speeding 65 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. In his senior year of high school, James Dean joined the debate team, where he was known to sort of make up sources. And when he would once in a while get caught, he would sort of just shrug it off. Nicholas Ray, the director of Rebel Without a Cause, had an alternate ending where the police actually shoot Jim Stark. As a child, Dean's uncle Marcus rigged some lights along a pond so that Dean and some of his friends could play hockey after dark. Dean first met Elia Kazan, the director of East of Eden. He offered to take him for a ride on his motorcycle, and Kazan accepted. Stevens, the director of Giant, barred James Dean from racing while the film was in production. Just before the ban was enforced, James Dean entered a race in Santa Barbara on Memorial Day, and on the last lap of the race he blew a piston in his Porsche Speedster. Dean's love of motor racing was sparked by the minister who took him to the Indy 500 when he was a boy. Dean was capable of instantly falling asleep and taking many naps throughout a day. Dean was the first to receive a posthumous Oscar nomination for Best Actor. As a boy, James Dean won several trophies and prizes for acting. Dean had a passion for bullfighting. Unlike previous actors, James Dean's director in Rebel Without a Cause, Nicholas Ray, encouraged his wild behavior because he felt it really helped the character of Jim Stark. While Dean was preparing to film Rebel Without a Cause, one critic claimed that Jimmy dresses like an unmade bed. Dean assumed that he would eventually become bored with acting and would someday become a director. Dean once said, "The only way to make a scene realistic is to do it the way it really would happen." During his early days at college, Dean would carry around a dictionary because he wanted to communicate with people in a high-end vocabulary, but he felt like he didn't quite have the vocabulary skills at hand. For a time, James Dean hosted shows on his college radio station. At UCLA, James Dean joined Epsilon Phi chapter of Sigma Nu. He was a reclusive member of the fraternity, and he was kicked out soon after. James Dean's role model was Marlon Brando. In high school, James Dean was a star basketball player. As a child, James Dean suffered from myopia, nosebleeds, rashes, vomiting, and diarrhea, and listlessness. James Dean was diagnosed with anemia. James Dean delivered the benediction at his high school commencement. James Dean spent a great deal of his childhood on his uncle's farm, where he swept the barns, fed the chickens, milked the cows, and planted seeds. Pacino said, "Well, the person that I admire is James Dean. I grew up with the rebel without a cause thing, and it really had an impact on me." James Dean was the founding member of his college jazz club. One of James Dean's favorite instruments to play was the bongo drums. Marlon Brando was originally considered for the lead role in Rebel Without a Cause, and he even went through testing. Dean once said, "If a man can bridge the gap between life and death and live on after he's dead, then maybe he was a great man." James Dean had a difficult time reading. Before Dean was to shoot his first scene in Giant with Elizabeth Taylor, he was so nervous he decided to unzip his pants and pee in front of the whole cast and crew. Later he said that if I was not afraid to do that, I wouldn't be afraid to do anything with her. When he was in the 4th grade, Dean burst out into tears in front of the whole class, saying, "I miss my mother." James Dean's mother died when he was 9 years old of cancer. Students who had teased James Dean before the incident soon stopped after the tears. As a teen, James Dean's acting teacher, Adeline Brookshire, described him as manipulative, capable of always getting his own way. When James Dean first arrived in New York, he spent most of his time watching movies in the theaters, up to 3 per day. At the National Forensics League competition, Dean was penalized for going over the time limit by 2 minutes. He refused to shorten his piece because he felt it compromised its integrity. On a school trip to Washington, D.C., Dean broke away from the group to go to Ford Theater. He wanted to see the place of Lincoln's assassination. Family members noted that Dean had a habit of getting absorbed completely into one activity, and then when he got bored of it, he would drop it completely and do something else. Dean was originally going to enter into Indiana University's drama department, but then he dropped out when he realized that most people in the drama department were expecting to graduate with teaching certificates because their chances of actually becoming an actor were considered minimal. Dennis Stock was a photographer who took the famous picture of James Dean walking through Times Square. He quoted Dean as saying, "You know, James Dean lived like a stray animal. You know what, come to think of it, he was a stray animal." During the previewing screenings of East of Eden, girls would start screaming the second James Dean came on the screen. Weeks before his death, artist Piggott Waring was teaching Dean how to sculpt. Waring grew frustrated with Dean, who kept asking question after question. It was like he wanted to know everything that had ever happened in sculpting back to the Stone Ages. One of Dean's first times acting in public was for the Women's Christians Temperance Union. He demonstrated the evils of alcohol by portraying the ruined life of a drunk. As a teen, Dean was a member of 4-H, and he even won a blue ribbon for a soil project. For most of his adult life, James Dean was an insomniac. The first time Natalie Wood, Dean's love interest in Rebel Without a Cause, met James Dean at the first rehearsal, James Dean arrived through the window instead of coming through the front door. When the press criticized James Dean for only being 5'8" tall, he said, "How could you measure acting by inches?" On the final day of shooting East of Eden, James Dean was found sobbing in the dressing room, saying, "It's over." Dean's father, Winton, was a Quaker, and his lineage goes back to the Mayflower. Dean began taking tap lessons at the age of 3. While struggling in New York, Dean would often eat for free at Jerry's Bar on 6th Avenue and 54th. Jerry Lucci, the owner, liked having conversations with Dean, and when the restaurant was full, Dean would eat in the kitchen. James Dean got his lucky break and several acting gigs after entering into a homosexual affair with Rogers Brackett, a radio director. For a time as a child, Dean would write a wish on a piece of paper and put it under his pillow every night, and his mother Mildred would then find out what the wish was and make sure it came true the next day. The first time Bill Bast saw James Dean perform Shakespeare in college, he said to himself, "James Dean, that's a name to forget." After appearing as the disciple John in an hour-long televised Easter special, students from Immaculate Heart High School for Girls made a James Dean Appreciation Day and invited the actor to go to their high school, which he did, to sign autographs. It is believed that James Dean never entered the Korean War because he was a conscientious objector due to his Quaker upbringing. When James Dean and his friends hitchhiked from Indiana back to New York, the last person that picked them up was a Texas driver that was so drunk that James Dean actually had to drive the rest of the way himself. In college, James Dean and Bill Bass would talk girls into providing them supper in exchange for dramatic readings and original sketches that they would provide them. After East of Eden, James Dean wanted to play a psychopathic patient in The Cobweb, but Warner Brothers prevented him from entering the role. In college for a time, James Dean became an avid fencer. All three of James Dean's major roles, he played characters with monosyllabic names: Cal Trask, Jim Stark, Jet Rink. A friend of Dean's, David Diamond, said, "He was the loneliest person I ever knew." Thanks for watching Jake's Showcase, everybody. Please don't forget to like my video below and subscribe to my channel up above. I do my videos on Wednesdays, and I hope you have a wonderful day.